Okay, so we'll start. Hi, thanks for coming. Um, this is, well, I mean, it's a new series, but you all know me. I'm Janice. Um, what I want to do and what the goal of this series is and what it's going to be about, I'll give a little bit of an introduction. Um, the goal of this specific class today is going to be a little bit of an intro and a little bit of a taste of what the plan is for the next, it's a 7 week series, I think, 6 or 7 weeks. So what's going to be coming up in the next weeks, what my goals are, and hopefully to do together, and explain why we're doing this and what's what's going to happen. So basically, the title is a little bit generic. It's Chagim series. When I was talking to Rabbi Haber about deciding what topic to do for this series, we thought that because the Chagim are so early this year, they're like right the day after Labor Day, right at the beginning of September, to do a class over the summer that's prepared. So that's sort of what the plan is. But my goal is like, I'm sure that you've heard many classes on the Chagim in your life, and you don't. I really want to go into. My goal is to each lesson, each class to go into one or two deeper topics about the holidays, and then at the end sort of connected to the larger theme of the holiday. That's sort of where I'm going. So it's not just gonna, I hope it's gonna allow us to look and learn and understand things from a bit of a different perspective than we've had in the past, or learn more about something that we didn't necessarily know. So that's really where I'm going. And yeah, it's going to be about Rosh Hashanah, Kippur, and Sukkot, right? The holidays coming up in Tishri, and yeah, that's really what's gonna be happening. So there's an idea, by the way, which is also why part of the reason there's an idea of learning about and mentally preparing ourselves for a holiday, for a moed. It's a meeting point in time of us and God, that we should be prepared, right? We shouldn't walk in haphazardly. We should mentally and physically be prepared. And the same way that I'm sure we're all going to start, cooking and filling our freezers, physically preparing for the holiday. It's also very, very critical and important, especially for Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, all the holidays. But we'll see why specifically Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, which are called the Yamin Noraim. We're going to talk about that a little bit more towards the end of the class. But that's really very critical. So I'm going to share screen. I brought some psukim. We'll I know people are visual, I'm visual, so it helps me. So maybe it'll help other people. Okay, so I titled this specific class Elul and the Duality of the Yamin Noraim, and we'll talk about that as we go. So I brought in a quote from the Talmud, which talks about Shalim v'dorshin v'chot haPesach kodem haPesach shoshim yom. So this is obviously about Pesach, not about the Yamin Noraim, but there's this idea, like I said, about learning and understanding the laws of a holiday 30 days before. We're a little bit more than 30 days now, right? 30 days is Elul, right? At Rosh Chodesh Elul, right? Because now I'm saying Pesach, because Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Chodesh Tishri. So Rosh Chodesh Elul is a month before. We're a little bit before that, but it's all good. And the more, the better. So to help prepare ourselves mentally and spiritually and physically. Okay, so Rosh Hashanah. So before we get into Rosh Hashanah and Kippur and that whole aspect, I want to talk about Elul first and what is significant about Elul. So a lot of people, I'm sure, have heard this, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But I think there's so much that a lot of there's a lot of interpretations of ideas of Elul by using it as an acronym, taking the Hebrew letters Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lamed that spell out Elul, and attributing or connecting different psukim to that word, to that name, to help us understand the essence of the month and what our goal is. So there's what I think, I mean, this is the one that I think is, pretty famous and pretty well known, is the Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li, the pasuk from Shir HaShirim, which is from Shlomo HaMelech, and it's basically a love letter, a love song, and it translates to "I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me," meaning that we are for God, and God is for us, that we're connected, we're building that relationship. And I'm not going to go. I mean, I'll talk about this for a second, but I really want to talk about the other ones. I actually I didn't know that as I was preparing this class, I saw many other psukim that were connected, and I want to also go into them. But this is basically starting the theme of the idea that this is a relationship, a loving relationship, which is very important, because if you think about how different religions view God, they view God as a vengeful God, as an angry God, as a more of a negative person, not person, God, what ruler, being, whatever you want to call it. So Judaism views this as a loving relationship, and as ideally a loving relationship, right? There are going to be times when God is, when we're not in a loving relationship, but that's sort of the ideal aspect that we have. So we're into Elul, we're wanting to fix and repair this relationship. And I sort of look at it as any loving relationship you have. Here it's between people that love each other, like a husband and a wife, two lovers. But it could also be between a parent and a child, siblings, business partner, anyone who you have an important connection, an important relationship with, and something's not going right and you need to repair the relationship. Elul is sort of, the way I sort of think about it, is the couples therapy in a way, right? It's realizing we have these issues in our relationship and we need to fix them. And realizing that doesn't mean all of a sudden gonna make it perfect. It's the first step into repairing that relationship. So in Elul, we're sort of guided to introspect and see, where am I failing in my side of the relationship, and what can I do to better that relationship to create a more ideal relationship. And that's really essentially what our goal is. It's not necessarily obviously the more you can perfect yourself, the better, but it's starting with that consciousness. So another pasuk that is connected to the Elul, the Aleph Lamed Vav Lamed, is Ish L'Re'eu. Wait, no, I didn't want to do that one first. We can do that one first, doesn't matter. Ish L'Re'eu Matanot L'Avyonim, from Megillat Esther, right? When it talks about the mitzvah of Matanot L'Avyonim. And what do we see here? The idea showing that giving charity, right? Helping someone less fortunate than you. So not only building a relationship with God, but building a relationship with those less fortunate in your surrounding. So charity is also a very, stakha, and looking at how to help those less fortunate is a big part of our introspection and our tshuva, because when we are able to look at the surrounding world and not be so self-focused, right, and be involved in the tikkun olam, in fixing not only our relationship with God, but our relationship with our people surrounding us, right, and bettering society, that's helping us essentially better our relationship with God and connecting to Him as well. Okay, then there's also, by the way, this was all, not all, but Rav Shlomo Gansfried of Hungary, he wrote the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. He brings a lot of this down as well, a lot of these different interpretations, and some of them are also from the Arizal. So just to quote some, I didn't make some myself. So another pasuk is Ina liyado v'samte lecha, which is a part of the pasuk, which is about when someone who is a rotzeach v'shogeg, someone who kills someone by accident, they have the opportunity, God grants them the opportunity to run to an ir miklat, right? An ir miklat is a safe city, like a safe house, where if he goes there, then the person, the family of the person he killed by accident cannot kill him. If he's not in the city, they have the right to avenge the blood. So, wait, why do I have something in? Oh, yes, the sixth punishment. Thanks, Doris, for that chat. I just saw the pop. I've lost my train of thought now. I should have looked at that till then. Anyway, the imitat, yes. So this is also focusing us to realize that in Elul, we have to obviously focus on perfecting all our shortcomings as much as we can, and the obvious sins, but also to think about the unintentional sins that we did. And what's unique about unintentional sins, I think, is that unintentional sins show, in a way, it shows a lack of consciousness, right? Because if I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing and I'm doing these sins unintentionally, yes, it's obviously not quote unquote as bad as someone who's doing it maybe vengefully or against God and things like that. But it shows a lack of my conscience in the relationship. Again, like the only way, I know I'm saying about this, but the only way we could, I mean, at least for me, it's very hard to think about our relationship with God as instead of, it's much easier to think about it when you compare it, so to speak, to human relationships. So you could have a very bad friendship or sibling relationship or marriage where the partners or the people involved are being vengeful and negative towards each other, and it's very obvious, and it's very sad and it's horrible. But there's also those relationships where the little things are getting overlooked and the relationship is slowly falling apart, even though it might look okay on the surface, but there's so many other things and layers that are not being focused on. That so this is also I think the fact that it brings the pasuk from the Rotzeach B'Shogeg. It's not a murderer. It's not a serial killer. It's not someone that's going out to want to be a bad person and kill them. The example is that someone's axe falls, right, by accident when they're working. So it's not, it's totally by mistake with no intention, but it shows a lack of consciousness and a lack of awareness for, again, our surroundings, our community, our world, things larger than ourselves, right? And so another pasuk I'm going to bring in is the pasuk. Is the pasuk for Elul is et levavecha ve'et levav, which is I bought the full pasuk on the bottom. By the way, if anyone's looking at the screen that's helping them, you could see that I bought the words that are from Elul and then the full pasuk on the bottom, just to give context, because obviously context is very important when we're talking about these things. This pasuk et levavecha ve'et levav is is part of the pasuk when God is talking about, not Moshe, sorry, Moshe is talking about when we do an ultimate tshuva, God was mal, meaning circumcised, so to speak, to remove all the outer layer of negativity, of evil inclination, of sin from within our hearts, from evil desires. So it's totally cleansing ourselves of negativity, which is obviously an ideal that we are trying to do through the month of Elul. So I think, which I found very interesting when preparing this, is that each one of these psukim and ideas that are attributed to the month of Elul essentially show the goal of Elul, which is what we should be doing through Elul, right? Which is charity, tzedakah, caring about those around us, doing prayer, tefillah, right, shuvah, and getting repentance and getting closer to Hashem, building that relationship while He's there. And it talks a lot about, just a little bit back to the uniqueness of the time and the ani ledodi aspect of I'm for my beloved. And there's a lot of talk of Hamelech Basadeh, the king is in the field, and Dirshuat Hashem behimotzol, right? These are a lot of things, a lot of psukim that we hear again and again during the time of Elul and the time of Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, that God is here, God is waiting for us to return. But what does that really mean? It's not that He's not always there. He's God, right? He's always there. But however, I keep bringing this analogy, but it just makes it so much clearer. It's the time to sit and work on the issues. It's okay. I'm here. I'm not going to gloss over this. I'm not going to pretend like everything's fine. I'm not just going to go through the motions. We're going to have the hard conversation and look and see what the issue is, right? And work through it and build that relationship. And I think that this month of Elul is so critical because, like I said, if we walk into Rosh Hashanah without doing this mental work, it's for nothing, essentially, because what did we do? So we got to the day, and that's very nice, and we heard the shofar, but it didn't really change. Like, what's different between the day before and the day after if we don't go through all this work in Elul, which is obviously not the simple work. And by the way, everything I'm saying now is obviously talking to myself more than anyone else, like working on, So I want to go a little deeper into this idea by looking at the fact that, actually, no, not that for a second, is the idea of what it means that we call the, like I have this book that I was using a little preparing, the Panine Halacha, great book, recommended, and it's, Yamin Noraim, right? It's the Yamin Noraim section, and it has the Hilchot and ideas of Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. So what is this idea of Rosh Hashanah and Kippur being called Yamim Noraim, right? And Norah we usually say the days of awe, right? Something that's, awe, amazing. But if you translate the word Nora, a lot of the translations and the connotations that are connected to the word Nora, textually and in the Torah and the Nevi'im, a lot of them have more of a negative connotation. It has to do with, I wrote some of them down. I was looking up at different contexts, but formidable, dreadful, fearful, right? We have this very heavy connection to it, right? This very intense, heavy day, and that is a lot of an aspect of it, a lot of the way it is portrayed. And however, we also see that it's called a mikra kodesh, right? A time of kedusha where it should be happy and festive, and it is a holiday, right? So there's this balance of duality of the idea of Yamin Noraim and the idea of mikra kodesh, and we see this through, which we're going to go through now. I'm talking about now. We see this through a lot of aspects in the holiday. I want to specifically talk about today about the tefillah, a little bit, and the slichot, and I hope about the simanim, what we eat. But I want to talk about now is the tefillot two specifically, but we'll talk. What I brought here is the Rambam, when Rambam is talking about the halachot of Hallel, and when we say Hallel, and on what days we say Hallel, right? The praising of God, right? All the psukim, all the prakim, and psukim of praise from Tehillim, from David HaMelech, praising God, that we do on Chagim, right? We do on Sukkot, on Chanukah, on the holidays where we're very joyous. He says, I didn't bring the whole section of all the days we say, but it's on the happy holidays, right? And he says, Aval Rosh Hashanah veYom HaKippurim en bahen Hallel lefi shehen yemei tshuva v'yirah v'fachad lo yemei simcha yetera. So it's very interesting when you look at how he phrases it. He says on Yom Kippur, on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we don't say Hallel because these are days of tshuva, of repentance, of yirah, of fearful, of awe, again, of fear, and pachad, of dread and fear. So these are very intense days. And he says, but he doesn't end there. He says, lo yemei simcha yetera. It's not days of extra simcha. So the fact that he adds the word yetera is very telling, because he could have just said lo yemei simcha, right? But he says lo yemei simcha yetera, extra simcha, meaning that there is a very important aspect of simcha in these days. However, we don't want to take it to the next level of simcha. There's still that push and pull, that duality of the fearfulness and concern of what's going to come out of this day. God is judging us on this day, right? I didn't really talk so much about that because I feel like it's so many people speak about it, but right, Rosh Hashanah is Yom Hadin. It's the day of judgment. We're getting judged, and anytime someone is judging you, you feel critical, right? You know that you have to be on sort of, it is frightening. Like I'm a teacher, obviously, right? And whenever I was teaching and the principal walks in, or even not the principal, even another teacher, even just, I remember at one point when I was I was very new, I was a new teacher, and one of the other teachers walked in just to get something in the back. And I remember feeling so like, oh, this other person's watching me and judging me. And maybe a lot of it was in my mind. Yes, like she was just getting her stuff in the back of the room that she left. But there was always that once you look at yourself from outside, there's always that level of a little bit of fear. Am I doing things right? Is this what I should be doing? Right? So there is so much of that level of deen in Rosh Hashanah, but it is a happy day. It is a chag. It is a mikra kodesh. It is something that we should be celebrating, right? We obviously have, festive meals and wine and everything like that as well, and being with family and happiness. I didn't bring this in, but he also, Rambam also talks about the idea that in the time of the Mikdash, the simcha was from the korban, right? From the korbanot, the extra korbanot you would give. And now, because we don't have korbanot, he said that the simcha comes from, meat and wine, eating meat and wine, and buying your family members special clothing for the holidays and special gifts for the holidays to make it a joyous and happy times that are still, that we should be doing. So this is this balance that we need to, it's a very hard balance to figure out through the day. And we also see this balance through this duality and balance through the mitzvah, not even the mitzvah, but the idea of shofar itself, what the shofar is. So obviously, Rosh Hashanah, another aspect is the Yom Teruah, right? The day of Teruah, the day of blowing the shofar. And on the one hand, the shofar is a very scary, jarring thing, right? Because it's a siren, right? And And the Amos, I bought this pasuk from Amos, where he says, "Im itka shofar ba'ir ve'am lo yecheradu," sorry, that if there's a shofar blown in the city, the nation won't, the city won't be shaken, won't be afraid. And I think about it. I mean, it's unfortunately a little more applicable to me now, because a couple of months ago we went through a little, a war, operation, a war, whatever you want to call it, when there was a lot of rockets coming from Gaza, and you hear that siren and it shakes you. Even at one point we were even in the safe room and we heard the siren, but it still shakes you, and it's still like, oh my gosh. And Israel also does the siren on Yom HaZikaron, on Memorial Day, and other days, and it's meant to be a shake, a experience of, to shake you up. And Rambam says this. He says it, I think. Rambam always says things so beautifully, but he says, when you hear the shofar, what is its goal, so to speak, is Uru yeshanim mishenatchem. Wake up those sleeping from your slumber. And those that are like napping or not paying attention, jump out from your tadema, from your sleep. And look into your actions. And evaluate your actions and return to tshuva, and return to God. So the shofar has that side of fear, of pachad, right? And that's something that's very, and it was I don't even say this, in the time of, in the ancient times, the shofar was blown in war, in times of war, right? To gather the people, to alert the people, right? There's very many very famous wars. If you look in the Nevi'im, especially, there is a few in Torah, in the Chumash and the Torah as well, but especially throughout all the Nevi'im, you see how they blew the shofar as a way to unite, to get ready for war, to alert people of war. It was very obvious. Oh, Doris also, right? It was also, wait, I'm getting there, Doris, you're jumping the gun. But this is the duality of it. Doris is writing comments and the things, but it's also something that has a very positive connotation. So again, this is duality. I'm going to talk about what Doris wrote in a second, but if we say it in the Kiddush of the Shlosh Regalim, right, in these happy times, in your happy times, in the holidays, in the Rosh Chodesh, and you blow the shofar, when you're doing the korbanot for the holidays, for the happiness, you are blowing the shofar to remember God, right? In a very joyous and happy way in your celebration, right? And also again, like when you're coronating at the king's coronation, they blew the shofar, right? And when they were traveling, they blew the shofar. It was a very powerful uniting a vehicle in times of happiness as well, right? And celebration as well. So again, this duality of these days of I'm having fear of judgment, I'm shaken up, but it also is happy, it also is joyous, it also is something that I should rejoice in with God, right? And we see this, it's very glaring in Nehemiah, when the people were hearing how bad they were, basically, and then they say, Al tidavlu ve'al tivchu ki bochim kol ha'am ki shmeat et dvar Torah, right? Don't cry, you're hearing that. But he says, what? No, go back, lechu ichlu mashmenim v'shitu v'mtakim, right? Eat, drink, and be merry, so to speak, right? Because God is going to be with you. And basically, it's saying that even in judgment, we should feel like we're going through the process in the correct way, and feel like it's a positive direction, that we don't have to feel this level of fear. We feel like we're going in that right direction with God, like I was speaking about before. Another way we see this, I want to talk about, is the idea of the slichot. And there's a lot to say about the slichot. I'm not going to, we're not going to speak about everything, obviously. But what I want to talk about the slichot is the idea that, first of all, the Sfaradim, we say slichot from Rosh Chodesh Elul, right? The Ashkenazim say it from, I think, the week before or the Shabbat before, something like very close, like very soon before the Shana. The Sfaradim say it every day of the month, showing again this idea that we need to be working on ourselves all through the month to get closer to God. And what is the slichot made up of, right? The slichot are made up of vidui, right? Admitting our sins, admitting we are wrong, right? Telling God, this is my fault. These are my faults, excuse me. It's made up of the Yud Gimel Midot Rachamim, right? The Yud Gimel Midot, the attributes of God's mercy, which we'll talk about in a second. And it's made up of a lot of beautiful poetry and supplications, begging God to forgive and accept us. So before we go more into that, I want to talk about the Shosh Esrei Midot of Rachamim. So what's the context here? What's happened? When you look at, if you look in the story, the way the where and how these midot originated and were given to us and told to us, was after God wanted to destroy the nation, right? They made the egel, they made the idol. They were worshiping Avodah Zarah. Moshe comes down, breaks the luchot, right? And God is like, I'm done with these people. I want to kill it, destroy the nation, and build a nation from you, Moshe. And Moshe, through his zchut avot, through his tefillot, through all these different things, his tefillot, he sort of, I don't want to say convinces because he's God, but he creates this sort of new paradigm, a new relationship between us and God, where God now gives us these midot rachamim, and it's essentially a new way that we are running this relationship. Because it was the deen side, the judgment was too strong at that point, and God now is opening this blueprint, this format of being rachum and chanun, being merciful and making room for us, right? Rechem, rachamim comes from the word, literally comes from the word room, the woman's rechem, like, right, making room to create life. So God's making room for us, right? He's erech apayim, he's more patient, he holds it, right? He holds his anger and his sins, right? And he allows us that time to work on ourselves and forgive and hopefully be forgiven. So after this national sin of Chet HaEgel, we get this sort of the Yud Gimel Midot are not a magical thing that if I say it, God's going to forgive me, but it's the blueprint and the program, so to speak, that I need to follow, and that God, so to speak, needs to follow. That this in our relationship, that we're making room for these midot and this mercy and this compassion and this openness for a lack of perfection and building towards that perfection as opposed to being there already. And this is why it's so central to the slichot, right? And Rav Soloveitchik says, what is different from the slichot for a regular, as opposed to a regular tefillah, right? A regular daily tefillot that we say. And he says the tefillah that we say, our daily tefillot, they're more of a meditative process. They're more strictly formulated, right? And when you read the slichot, he calls it a sa'aka, like a calling out, right? A cry, where it's more immediate, it's more compulsive. So it's more begging God to help me in a time of crisis, right? And he brings the idea of not the main crux, but one of the things we say is the anenu, right? We say anenu avinu, please God. We're begging God in every aspect of his being, of his relationship towards us, like our Father, our Creator, our Redeemer, all these things, to forgive us, and begging in any way, shape, or form for us to move forward in this relationship and be forgiven. So this is all about following the program to fulfill, what's the word I'm looking for? To renew and rejuvenate that relationship between us and God. And what's very interesting to realize, I didn't bring all the sources, but there's a lot of discussion halachically if one can say the slicha alone, or do you need a minyan? And back and forth, there's different opinions about this. And the conclusion basically is you shouldn't say it alone. You should only say it with a minyan, because of the fact that the vayavor al panav, the midot, the yigam midot is a davar b'tusha, and we should only say it davar b'tusha with a minyan, as well as the kadisha that we also say in the slichot. And they say that if you want to say it by yourself, you have to skip certain things or whatever. But I think it's much more than just that. The power of the slichot, so to speak, is not only about what you're saying, but it's about, again, like back to the beginning of the themes of Elul, it's about my place as an individual in the collective. And I need, this is not, it is an individual tshuva. There is an aspect, obviously, of individual tshuva and my individual relationship with God. But what's the real way, or not, I don't want to say the real way, but what's the most complete and cohesive way in doing that is by becoming a partner with God and doing tikkun olam and fixing that relationship on a national and global scale. So that's why it is so important. I think it's so important that if one is going to say slichot, it's to be with a minyan and that collective consciousness and a collective unity, and realizing and looking around and saying, yes, we might have all these problems in the nation, but we are united and we need to connect and try to reattach ourselves as a whole to God. And I think that that's a very telling thing about slichot in general. There's also something that I want to talk about the slichot is the timing of the slichot. So the timing of the slichot is, it's the Sfaradim say the slichot in the early morning, right before dawn, between night and dawn, basically, right? You can either say it's the end of the night or before the dawn, right? And what is so significant about this time, right? Why can't we just say whenever we want? So, by the way, the Ashkenazim say it at night, and I was reading up on the slichot, and basically, Chama Ovadia and a lot of others, but Chama Ovadia was very vocal that this is not the right, that really the time of the Sichot is this early morning time. And there's a lot of the idea, it is very Kabbalistic, but the idea I think is very, it's that the physicality of when we say the Sichot, the physical surroundings, is supposed to mirror our goal of Sichot, of what we're saying. What do I mean by that? It's saying that, right, when we're saying the Sichot, at that time in the early morning before the dawn as the sun is rising, the world is still, the world is quiet. We're waiting for the sun to rise, right? We're waiting for, there's no hustle and bustle of the world. There's not, it's still from most action. And I think that that's what we should be aiming for in our saying of the Slichot, but also in our whole month of Elul and Rosh Hashanah and all that is starting our relationship with God and ourselves and our nation on a fresh slate, right? It's giving us this clean, new opportunity to begin again and to introspect again and to evaluate, right? And to do all that work that I think, again, is like mirroring through the atmosphere surrounding you when you say the slichot. So I want to sort of sum up a minute and then end on one point. It's that, so basically, we talked about a lot of different aspects, but I really think that I chose to start like this to know what we're walking into in this time, right? The month of Elul itself is about opening our consciousness, about our individual consciousness, our collective consciousness, all our relationships, and the duality of this day in our tefillot, in our slichot, in our actions of the shofar. This is all showing that we have to walk this balance of constant fear, but also constant happiness and love, and always back and forth. And I think about it also in the sense of, it's not fear so much as like, oh, I'm afraid that I'm going to get, killed or punished or whatever. It's a fear of disappointing someone you love, right? If you mess up, right, especially with children, right? You think about like, all these different parenting or teaching techniques. If a child fears you because they're scared you're gonna, I don't know, take away their iPad or hit them, whatever. Obviously, don't hit children. But if they're afraid of a repercussion and they're scared of you, it's more of a scary, to be scared of the consequences. That's going to befall them. That's a much more immature relationship than someone who's afraid of disappointing you, right? Like, I think that's a lot of shift in maturity, is when you realize that you want a relationship with someone, not because I'm afraid of a negative outcome that's going to affect me, but I'm afraid of the negative outcome that's going to affect that person and that other and this relationship we have that we're building. So I think that that's a lot of the fear we should be focusing on. And that's the duality of the fear, that it's not only about, I don't want God to kill me, I don't want God to judge me, for bad this year. So, it's about, I don't want to disappoint and ruin this relationship with God. So I hope, we're going to end there and sum up, but I hope that this class, this series is going to help us all do that. Just a little, like, not, I don't know if it's like sneak peek or whatever, is I want to talk about things like the simanim of Rosh Hashanah and how those help us. I want to talk about the ideas, sorry, my phone's ringing, I thought I put it on silent, of the Inuyim of Yom Kippur, of what those goals are, and I didn't even talk about it so much now, but this shift of Rosh Hashanah, of Yamin Noraim to Sukkot, which is called Zman Simchatenu, and how we go from these days of awe and fear and all this that we're talking about now, and we shift to the Yemei Simcha, the holiday of Simcha, which we'll talk about obviously as the series develops. So I hope to see you same time next week, and I hope we could continue to learn together. I hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to participate, comment. And yeah, I would love your input. And if there is anything that you want, something to focus on that you think is interesting that you want to learn more about, please send it to me. And oh, hi.
Yeah. So, Jen, the one thing that I guess is just calling into question for me is the role of happiness in Judaism, because we know, right? Misha nichnas adad madbim besimcha, but contrastly, we have Misha nichnas av mima'atin besimcha. But never does it say that we shouldn't be happy at all. Meaning, it seems like there's a default level of happiness at all times.
Well,
Right?
that's also back to that Rambam with the Simcha Me'at, right? And also, I think that what you have, this is like a whole another topic, but I think it's also, you're so cute. You want to talk?
He's a big mouth.
Oh my God, he's so cute. Sorry, I'm distracted by how cute he is. I think it also is something to really think about in, I think it was actually in a class on this, of the schok of Yitzchak, and the fact that Yitzchak is named Yitzchak because of the laughter, but he also was one that is also, he's connected very strongly to pachad, right? To fear and yirah. So there is this level. Yes, I think that I want to talk about this idea. This is something I put on, like I wrote in my notes to talk about it because
Yeah, I was
Sukkot
gonna say, like,
right. No, that
if
is
we're
something.
always supposed to have a happiness, like, how is this different? Or like,
Right. So I
is there
want
different
that.
kinds of happiness?
Right. So that's one of my on my list of things for but
Got it.
that's what I want to really go into when we get more to Sukkot. But I agree with you. There is this level of always of never, because the whole, I think I'm gonna end with this, like, sort of just to like end it, whatever, but that I think the fact that we have tshuva, right, the fact that we always can repair this relationship, that we're never going to be fully forgotten. God's never going to say, I'm divorcing you, so to speak, I'm kicking you out, you can never return. The fact that we have that opportunity for tshuva is, I think, the essence of where the simcha comes, is because no matter how far gone I go, I could always turn the other way and rebuild.
It's like Tisha B'Av. It's the same thing. There's still a level of simcha in that, knowing that he kicked us out of love and
right,
out of care,
exactly. So
instead of out of indifference.
right, and exactly. Hate is not the opposite of love. Apathy is.
Indifferences.
Right,
Right.
apathy, whatever you want to say. So I think that is a very important topic. I do want to talk about it. It's on,
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, and thank you guys for coming, and thank you, Joey, for participating. Oh my God,
Thank you.
he's really too much. I can't.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you guys, and
Talk to you soon.
see you later. Have a good day.
Bye.